We're going to start off by measuring 2 tablespoons of lightly packed brown sugar. Make sure and level it off and go ahead and put it in your bowl. Next, we're going to measure some cinnamon. We need 1/4 of a teaspoon, which is the smallest measuring spoon on your little ring. With this large containers, you can actually open the full side, stick the measuring spoon in there, and level it using that flat surface on there. Now we need 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. That is the smallest amount divided by 2, so you only need half of it. Give this a light stir and then set it off to the side. Next, we're going to start with our apples. Now we're using 1 apple for this recipe, but we're actually going to use half of a tart Granny Smith apple and then half of some type of red apple like Fuji or Honeycrisp. You're going to go ahead with your vegetable peeler and peel off all the skin. If there's a little bit left on there, it's not a big deal, totally fine. Once you're done peeling it, go ahead and discard the peels, and we're going to remove the core. The core is the middle where the stem is and where the seeds are. You don't want to eat that part. So I'm taking a paring knife and I'm very carefully cutting it out, making sure not to cut myself. Next, we are going to medium dice all of our apples. The way that I find this the easiest is to cut it in half the way that I just did, to slice it long ways, and then to cut it the other way. Go ahead and get a small to medium size mixing bowl, preferably a metal or a glass bowl, and medium dice all of your apples up. When you are done dicing all of your apples up, you are going to mix it with that brown sugar, salt, and cinnamon mixture that you just measured and put off to the side. So give it a really good mix, and then we're about to saute it. In a medium saute pan that is a non-stick black Teflon coating, you're going to put half of a tablespoon of butter until it melts. Now you want to cook this on medium heat on y'all stoves. I would say that is a number 6. Once the butter is melted, go ahead and add in all of your diced apples, making sure to use your rubber scraper to get all of it out of the mixing bowl. Now you don't need to wash this, just set it to the side. You're going to cook this for 5 minutes, stirring it occasionally about every 30 seconds. Once the 5-minute time is up, turn the heat off and let it sit there for 2 more minutes. So total 7 minutes in the pan. Once it's done, go ahead and put it back into that mixing bowl that you used before, and then you're going to stick it in the freezer. As long as you're working with the dough, you want to cool it down as quickly as possible. Now, working with your puff pastry, you need what I call 2 strips. So I'm taking the full thing and I'm cutting it. So right now you can see 3 strips. You only need 2, so you're not going to use the last one. Now you take these strips and you cut them each in half, and it'll give you about 4 equal pieces. The yield to this turnover recipe is 4. So what you're going to do, and now notice that I am using my cutting board. That is what you want to do. You want to get your large cutting board, and that's what you're going to roll the dough out on. Use a little bit of flour, put it on the cutting board and on your rolling pin, and you're going to roll these out. You basically want to get them to double in size. This does not need to be perfect by any means, but just get the dough bigger. You're going to do this to all 4 pieces. Notice I am flipping them over and turning them the other way, always doing it on the cutting board. Now on the side, I have my baking sheet that has been lined with parchment paper. I'm using that just for the moment to hold the dough on there. Now, once you're done rolling them out, I want you to actually work on the cutting board. I know in the video it shows me doing it on the baking sheet, but I don't want you to do that. So you're going to use some egg wash. Egg wash, all it is some egg that's been beaten with a little bit of water. Now, this is going to be the glue that's going to hold our pastry together. Okay, so you're going to take a basting brush and you are going to very lightly basically paint the outsides of each of your squares. Okay, again, please don't do this on the baking sheet like I was doing it. Do it directly on your cutting board and you'll move it to the baking sheet later. So you don't want to put too much, only on the outside. If you put too much, basically it gets too wet and it won't stick together very easily and your pastry will come undone. Now, getting your cooked apples that were in the freezer, you're going to cut it into 4 equal pieces, and that's going to be a perfect amount for each of your 4 turnovers. So add a little bit into the middle, kind of even it out the best you can, really trying not to have it touch the egg because that'll make it not be sticky anymore. Now you're going to gently fold it over, making sure to do it very gently so you don't break the dough, and you're going to press it down all around the dough. Now, as soon as you're done with this, you're going to get a clean fork, and you are going to use the fork to press the sides down. You're crimping it. This will basically seal the dough so it doesn't open in the oven, and so all of the filling will stay inside. Repeat this process for all 4 of your turnovers, and then at this point you can put them on your baking sheet that's been lined with parchment paper. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking a sharp paring knife and I'm cutting 3 slits in the top of all of my pastries. This is going to allow the air to escape. Last thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit more egg wash and you're going to very carefully brush the egg wash over the tops of them. You do not want to put too much. It'll get too dark in the oven if you do just a little bit. Okay, do all 4 of those, and at this point you are going to be ready to put them in the oven to bake. Make sure that when you open your oven, it's been preheated to 400 degrees and you're going to put it in the middle rack. You don't want to put it too close to the top or else the top will get too dark and it might burn. Set your timer for 15 minutes. Once the 15-minute time is up, let the air out so that you don't burn yourself, and very carefully pull all of your turnovers out of the oven. They should be lightly golden brown. There may be a little bit that has spilled out of the tops or on the side. That's totally fine. The dark pieces on my parchment paper are from the egg mixture actually, because I shouldn't have done it on there. I should have done it directly on the cutting board. Now this is an optional step, guys. You can do this if you want, but it's not required. They will basically cool quicker if you remove them to a cooling rack, and also they won't get stuck to the parchment. If you let them sit there too long, they might get stuck to the parchment, and when you remove them, they kind of break. So here we have our cooled pastries. We're gonna go ahead and make our glaze. All you do to make your glaze is you take 1/4 cup of powdered sugar and you put it into a small mixing bowl and you add about 1 tablespoon of liquid. I'm using heavy cream here, and all you do is get a fork and you're gonna mix it really good together until it's like a nice smooth mixture. You want it to be able to drizzle over there. So I didn't feel like there was enough liquid in here. I added another little dash to make it just a tiny bit more runny. And then I felt like it was perfect. So you're gonna get this and you're gonna drizzle it over your turnovers. Once they've been sitting for about 2 or 3 minutes, that's when you want to drizzle them. If you do it too quickly, it's gonna be hot and it's gonna melt off of there. Now guys, this is yours to eat. You can put as much or as little as you want. If you want a sweeter pastry, you can put more. If you don't really like too much sweet, maybe just add a tiny little bit and that'll be enough for you. Remember, the pastry dough itself, that puff pastry is not sweet itself. So I feel like it needs a little bit of sweetness, but that's totally up to you and your palate and what you like. At this point, I think it's best to eat them within about 10 minutes of coming out of the oven. They're nice and flaky and warm and delicious. So go ahead and enjoy them, and that's it.